What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You. We are going to be talking all about the importance of communication today. So if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Please make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. If you aren't new, make sure you just share it with somebody out there. That's all we ask from you here. But in communication, we were actually talking about it before, and we're like, we might as well just hit record because like all this stuff we were talking about was really, really relevant to this. And really, we can go a million different ways with this topic. Obviously, like the importance of communication. If you have a coach or somebody who's helping you out, like the communication between coach and client, the communication between somebody who's trying to achieve any sort of goal and their coworkers, their family, friends, spouse, all that stuff. Relationships, we were just talking a lot about that and the importance of communication there. But first off, before we get into that, brother, what's going on, Matt?
I'm doing great, dude. Communication is going to be a big one, man. So I'm excited to talk about this one, just because I've had a lot of experience with it. I know you have too, and so going into it from a professional standpoint, just from being a human being and living life and doing those things and having different experiences. And I'm sure everybody listening to this has had hopefully at least somewhat good and maybe some areas for opportunity in communication too. So. But otherwise, man, I'm doing great, brother. I'm gonna get out on the water, gonna go fishing today. So I'm a happy dude, man.
I can see it.
How about
I can
you?
see it in your face, brother.
Yeah,
I'm doing
dude,
good
I'm
though.
excited. I'm
Yeah, I
pumped.
love it, dude. I'm excited for you, and
Good.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Job steadying it out a little bit. I'm a little bit more out of training, and so feeling a lot more comfortable there. Just feeling. I was telling you before, my job schedule is just so weird, and I don't really know what it's going to be every day, and so I'm really trying to just give away control to it because I just don't have control and just go with the flow of when I have appointments, running those appointments to the best of my ability. Trying to hang out with Marissa. Well, it's more spontaneous, like throughout the week because I'm working and I'm on call till 8 p.m. And so like when I can, finding those gaps in the schedule to go over there, hang out with her, and make sure that I'm hitting everything that I need to. Also making sure I'm getting workouts in, even though if I'm not getting to the gym as much as I have been, doing something from home a few days a week, going to the gym a few days a week. I'm really prioritizing using my crock pot to get nice meals, and I'm just trying to do my best. I've been feeling a lot better this week, but I did start to get away from the diet a little bit last week. Like started to see it slip, eat a lot more garbage, eat a lot more convenient stuff, and I felt it. And so like this week I've been really dialed in again with my nutrition, and I feel that too. I feel a lot better. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better sleep and a lot better energy. Feel a lot more like myself for sure.
Good. Good. And if you want to, and for anybody who's listening to this, depending on what time it posts, I was kind of feeling the same way with like, oh man, I'm getting away from my nutrition. Like I'm slipping a little bit. So if you guys want any extra incentive or accountability starting May, I'm going to go through basically the fundamentals, right? The basics. If you guys want to join, you're more than welcome if you need the accountability aspect of it. I'm going to run at least 12, maybe to 16 weeks. Not necessarily testing my full on program, but just tightening things up, getting in a better position for summer, just to have fun. If you're feeling guilty and you're out there and you're like, man, I don't want to take my shirt off. Like, I'm embarrassed, things like that. You need to drop some pounds. Like, it's a good opportunity to jump in and have some accountability here. So if you guys are wanting to do that, I'm going to start in the beginning of May. I'll release more details about that too. So if you guys are listening to this and you want some accountability, probably a good time to do it. So yeah.
Let's go, and we'll drop a link below this, right? Maybe something you can drop a link below this. Make sure you click that. Matt's program is fucking awesome. One of the best coaches out there. And yeah, if you want to even just follow his journey, you're going to learn a ton of stuff. But if you're looking for extra accountability and you do like want to talk with him about coaching as well, we can link some stuff down below as well, because just constant transformation after transformation is what this guy has under his belt. So he's helping people left and right. But awesome. Well, what do you think? What's the first thing you think of when it comes to communication and just like the importance of it?
Well, you were talking and you brought up a great point, and I want to ask you on your opinion on this too. But you brought up, man, I've been getting better at doing my workouts. I've been finding more of a rhythm and a consistency. Now, my question to you is, when you're in a relationship, have you experienced this before or yet, to the point where, um, hopefully your spouse or your significant other is also on board with a healthy, fit lifestyle, which means that you're going to have, if you're doing it consistently, you're going to have your workouts at some sort of priority level, right? Especially if you're doing them consistently. Have you experienced, or have you had that communication or conversation with her to be in a position of like, hey, I'm going to work out at this time? Has there been any, um, not like ill feelings or anything like that, but has there been any hesitation on both sides? Has there been a conversation about that? Because I know this is really important for my clients too. So when they come on, it's one of the first things I ask them too, is like, what's their support system look like at home before they start their journey? Because if you don't have much of a support system, or your significant other is jealous that you're pursuing something and trying to better yourself, like, we need to nip that right away, because the health and fitness journey is already very challenging. So I think that communication piece to that significant other, to that spouse, to make sure that you have their support, you got to do it early, and you got to do it in the beginning of your stage. So I'm wondering, when you brought that up, that's what rung a bell with me. It was like, I have that conversation with my clients all the time. We cross that bridge. But for you, have you had to cross that as of recently, just kind of in your own relationship?
Not really. Marissa's really supportive of really anything, and she knows how important like nutrition and she's really she's really dialed in with her nutrition too. Like she eats a lot of veggies, quality, just a lot of quality foods, right? And so she and I are on the same page there. When we go out, we gravitate towards like more nutritious options on the menu, like the salmon, veggies, salads, stuff like that. And then we'll also mix in. We always mix in a dessert too, so we're getting that balance in there. But yeah, I mean, I think I like in my relationship, I haven't really had any problems with it at all. Like, she's supportive of whatever I do, and I always do it in the morning, right? I'm a morning workout guy anyway. I'll get up early, get it done. Like I said, a lot more of my workouts have been coming from home. When I stay over at her place, I'll get workouts in like sometime. Like, a lot of times I'll load up the week because I stay over there on the weekend, and then I'll just like take those days off, and more or less maybe we'll go on a hike, we'll do walks, like stuff like that to get my movement in. But some days I'll do like just a quick workout from her place as well, just a little body weight thing, push-ups, squats, sit-ups, like whatever it may be. But yeah, I think it's just, in my opinion, that is an important thing, and a thing where a lot of times people aren't aligned. But I love that you brought that up, because I've had that as well with clients, where it's, they're afraid to talk to their spouse about it. They're afraid to talk to their spouse about their goals, right? With health and fitness, with weight loss. And that goes a long way towards achieving those goals. Because, I mean, first off, if you don't tell somebody about something, and this goes really for anybody, right? This goes for your coworkers, because I know a lot of people struggle with coworkers bringing in sweets and different things and pushing you to eat them. It goes for friends and family. Like, when you're out to eat with, like people, you get a lot of people that like will rag on you for, oh, you're getting a salad. Like, oh, come on, like actually eat food with us, whatever, like, And so I think when you communicate your goals to people, then if they're actually like on your side, they're going to be behind you. They're going to support you, right? And they're going to help you with the things. Like, if you, like for me, like if I were to have like struggles with certain things, right, and like I don't communicate those to Marissa, then how is she able to help me, right? Because I know that she's going to support me in anything and help me. But if I do have struggles with certain nutrition things and I don't tell her about it, then she's in the blind, and maybe she has I could have resentment towards her for not helping me when I haven't even, like, because I've seen that many times, right, where people are like, they almost resent their significant other without even like them knowing anything about their situation, when if all they did was communicate that they're trying to lose weight, and them always eating cookies and having cookies in the house it's really hard for them, right? Because then they end up eating it. Or them always having chips in the house is like super difficult, like, because every time that they bring chips out and when they're watching a movie, like they always end up reaching in the bag and they keep eating, and they can't control themselves around these things. But if you do that, then it's like, okay, can we like go out and get these things? Or can, is there like a certain, like, can we like put them away in a certain area so they're out of sight, out of mind? And maybe can you like not bring them out when I'm around? Or, what I mean? Like, you just kind of have these conversations, you come up with a solution, and now you guys are both on the same side of the table, and you're able to start actually moving forward, and you're going to get a lot closer to that goal of yours.
And at the very least, too, like at least it's gonna be on that person's radar, right? Whether it's your spouse, family member, coworker, if you're vocal about it and you bring it up right initially in the front, and so that it avoids this whole like awkwardness of you're expecting your coworkers to know, you're expecting your spouse to know. And so to Alex's point, like people will give you shit for that, right? Like you go out and you order the salad and they're ordering, the cheesecake and the wings and all that stuff. And they're giving you shit for ordering the salad when you can just, you'll take a ton of pressure off your shoulders just by being upfront. You can even joke about it too. I've told my clients this too, is be like, hey, let them know you're trying this for the 100th time. This time I really want to stick to it. So, I don't want to be easily persuaded by things. I believe in myself. I trust in myself this time. You can almost like joke about it, right? Like, and by doing that, people will kind of laugh, and you'll be surprised you'll get their support. They're like, oh man, let's help them. Let's not distract them. I am going to, your friends might be like, I am going to order the shit food, but I'm not going to offer you any. I'm going to keep it over here. Like I'm respecting you. And so those are the people you want to surround yourself around. If it's the people that keep nagging you or try to make you feel bad, just understand that's a crabs in a bucket mentality. They're trying to pull you down with them. They don't want to see you do better than them. And you have to understand that's a reality, and that's okay. But my advice would be to like pinpoint those people out and just limit your time if this is a priority to you. So that communication is going to be huge. And which, by the way, you can also have that communication with that person as well. Like, hey, I noticed you don't necessarily respect my goals, and that's fine, but it's going to be extremely difficult for me to try to reach these things if you continue to do that. And so for that, I'm gonna have to limit my time, unfortunately. It's just something super simple to them. And you'll be surprised, like that person will either change right away and go, oh shit, they noticed, or they'll be like, oh yeah, whatever, like just kind of, and they kind of show their true colors. So you got to be very open and honest straight out front. And I promise you'll feel this huge weight lifted off your shoulders. You'll get the support from the people who actually matter and actually care and give a shit about you. And then the ones who don't, they'll stick out like a sore thumb. But it's only because you communicated that to them right off the jump. If this is, I think people just sit in no man's land, which by the way is like the worst place you can be in, right? Like, and we're just talking about, food scenarios because those are very popular, right? So, but if you go out and you don't say anything, they're, chances, especially with guys, like your buddies are going to rag on you, right? Like, oh dude, you're fat. What do you think you're doing? Like, you just had a hot dog at the turn. Like, what do you mean you're trying to improve your body and your health? If it, they're going to wear you out, like, and that's fine. But it's, you can eliminate a lot of that just by telling them up front and being honest and being transparent. And the right people will stick, and the wrong people will make it more difficult for you, but you'll be able to see it for face value. And I think you'll be able to make a lot easier decisions too. So, I mean, I faced that in the workplace too, right? Where you're like, you're a leader in the workplace and you want certain things to get done, or you almost expect people to do them a certain way. But if there's a lack of communication there and you come in the next day at work and shit's not done, you're just like, damn, instantly you want to point the finger, right? Like instantly you want to be like, why didn't you do this? Like you were supposed to do this. And then I go back up a minute and go, hold on. I never even communicated that to them. I just expected them to do that, right? And there should be certain expectations, but even if there are expectations, that has to be communicated at some point, right? And I remember that was a downfall for me. It was like, I just put so much trust in the people that were underneath me that are like, oh yeah, they'll get it done. And then I come in the next day and it wouldn't get done. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's nobody's fault but my own. And that's because I had high expectations of them. And it's not that they fell short, but it's because I wasn't clear in my communication at any point in time. I just expected them to do something. And so there's like this gray area in between where I'm like going home for the day, expecting to come in tomorrow. It's going to be done. They're finishing the day feeling super accomplished. And they're like, yeah, everything's done. Like we're solid. Matt's going to be super pumped when we come into work tomorrow. And we're on two totally different pages, right? And so I think a lot of that can be avoided, man. I don't know if you've experienced any of that. I know we were talking about health and nutrition, but have you experienced anything similar?
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, I think like there's definitely there. And I think it almost comes down to we as humans think that everybody else is like a mind reader. Like we just assume this goes for, the workplace, it goes for, friends and family, like spouses, like significant others, whatever it may be, right? It's like we think that like I've fallen into this trap many times where yeah, it's like in the workplace, there's things that you just assume people understand that needs to get done and they don't get it done, right? But again, it falls on nobody's shoulders but your own. Also, like, coaching, right? Like there's scenarios where it's like you assume that people like know what needs to get done, but you didn't fully communicate it the right way. It wasn't communicated as clearly as it could have been, and like really like hammered home, right? It's like those kind of things. And then it's like, oh, well, there's no, and it only has to happen a few times before you you really start to see the pattern there, right? And we were talking beforehand as well about just like relationships and stuff and I'm no relationship expert, far from it. But a lot of couples you see, like I've observed a lot of couples out there, right, that they fight and fight and fight and fight and fight, and like people will tell you that like fighting is like an important aspect of a relationship, and I really disagree with that statement. Like I think that having confrontation and having like communication is like an important thing in a relationship. And again, I'm no fucking expert, not even close. But like what I've found just with Marissa and myself is that like we haven't had any fights. Like we've had like things that we've had to talk through, but I think that comes back to like us talking about these things before they even become that kind of thing, where neither of us is in the dark on any scenario, right? And so it's like it's something that maybe is coming up, and I'm like, this could be a problem, like I see this maybe, we're gonna have a talk about it before it blindsides either one of us, right? And then it's more of maybe a fight as opposed to just like a conversation where it's like, oh, this might not be ideal, it's coming up in a month, like whatever, this is my schedule's shifting, right? It's like it used to be consistent, now it's not consistent anymore. Like, listen, I'm not going to have as much time as I used to, like, and I'm going to do my best, like when I do have time, to like prioritize you, and I want to make sure that like you are a very high priority in my life, like one of the highest priorities, right? And so like it's like all of these different things that like if communicated beforehand, then it's not a problem, it's not a fight, it's not like an issue, because now we're both on the same page, right? Or like this, I think this goes for any sort of relationship, not like even just a boyfriend and girlfriend, husband, wife, like any like friends, like whatever, like if there's different type of things that could become an issue, because you see friends fight all the time too, right? If you don't communicate those things beforehand, or things that could be a problem, then boom, then it's a fight, then you're not talking to them for a long time or whatever it may be. So that's another thing.
Yeah, and I think most of that lack of communication, frustration, fighting can be solved if you self-assess and figure out if you're in a position of assumption. Like if you're going into this and something's pissing you off and you're just in the driver's seat of assuming, like assuming that person's going to do the right thing, assuming that they're going to pick you up in a certain area, assuming that they already know what you're thinking. If you're in that spot of assuming, like that story that I told at work, I think you're already done. So if you're in a position where just you're assuming, I think it's better to over communicate than it is to not say anything at all and just take assumption on your side and be like, oh yeah, they should know what to do, or I hope they know what to do. And if you're building your foundation based on shoulds and hopes and assuming, man, you're just setting yourself up to be frustrated the entire time. It's a very shaky foundation, versus you might feel uncomfortable over communicating something. And yeah, you shouldn't have to say it, multiple times. That's a whole different story. But even if you did have to say it more than once, but you knew your point was very black and white, it was very clear, for a fact, the people were on the same page, that sort of thing. I think it can only work out for the better. So that's something that I would let people know and kind of be aware of. And anytime you're in a situation and scenario, this is what's helped for me. This is what's helped me coach my clients, is anytime you feel like you're pointing the finger in those sort of scenarios, it's easy to do that. It's easy to point the finger and blame somebody else. Like, they should do this. They should know what I'm thinking. They should know exactly what I want, what it is that I want, and what makes me tick, and what's best for me. If you're in that position, I encourage you they call it pointing the thumb, right? Instead of pointing the finger, you point the thumb. Point the thumb at yourself and say, okay, where could I have been better? Even though, just assume that it's your fault. And I promise you'll be able to work through it so much better, versus trying to blame the other person for not meeting your expectations, or assuming that they were supposed to do something that they didn't. And the second you start doing that and taking ownership, I promise you, it'll get so much easier. You'll have so much more clarity. You'll alleviate so many excuses, conversations, rebuttals, arguments, and you'll be able to clear the air with things. And it's so much easier. So I think one of the biggest things, or if you haven't tried this, I encourage you to try this. If you find yourself in a position of all of a sudden you're just assuming, so you're assuming that the other person is going to do the thing that you want, or you're assuming that something's going to get done, or you're assuming that they're going to read your mind and they know exactly what it is that you feel like, you're deserving of, or anything like that. Anytime you're in that situation or scenario, I think the second you feel the assumption, before you feel like that other person or crowd or group has let you down, I think one of the things that'll help you, and what's helped me big time, is taking ownership. And instead of, people call it pointing the finger or pointing the thumb. So pointing the finger meaning like blaming other people. Try pointing the thumb, right? Point the thumb back at you and go, okay, where could I have been better? Where could I, although I communicate, let's just say hypothetically, although I communicated it one time before, maybe I needed to communicate it 2 to 3 times more for it to sink in, for it to register, for them to understand the severity of what I meant. Because I think a lot of times too, just because you communicated things one time doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, somebody's got it, or that group of people has got it. Sometimes you have to say it multiple times. Sometimes you have to deliver it in a different way. I know personally, like in my program, I've made a ton of changes just because something made sense to me and I saw people continuously dropping the ball in a certain area. I pointed the thumb back at me and go, okay, how can I make this even more clear than it already is? I'll give you an example. I would put, checkoffs on my app, meaning like, okay, they're going to walk 10K steps a day, hydrate. And these are like tasks that as soon as you hit the button, it completes it for the client. It's kind of like a checkoff list. I thought that was very clear, but there was some clients that were continuously dropping the ball. And I'm like, I wonder why. And so when we go into it, and I had these conversations when they would finish the program, they'd be like, oh yeah, I know you had me at 8K steps, but I figured like if I was at 5K, that would be okay. Right. And I could just check off my step count for 8K. And I'm like, well, that's in my head. I'm like, no, that's crazy. Like that's a 3,000 step difference across 7 days, a 15,000 steps that you're not taking. And I'm thinking that in my head, and I know that energy expenditure wise, like we're no longer putting you in a caloric deficit based on what I have you eating. Now, immediately I could have just jumped on him like, what are you thinking? Like, but I'm like, I should have set the standard a little bit better. I should have made that a little bit more clear. And so I've gone back and literally, in addition to the daily checklist, I created as part of my onboarding now and saying like, hey, I want you to be within this range. Like if the goal is 10,000 steps, like before we transition you into this other phase, and I'm just using 10,000 steps, I'm just throwing it out there, but before I transition you into this next phase of the program, you need to be consistently 80% of the time hitting this 10,000 step target, or else we don't transition into the next phase. And so I make that very clear to them, because now it's on them. Now the ball's in their court. Not only is it meeting my standard that I'm setting for them, and they don't have to read my mind, we have it in black and white. We have our own checklist that we cooperate with every time we jump on a monthly call, and we just go back and assess and go, hey, are these things checked off or are they not? Because if they're not, and of course we go on the honor system, but if they're not, we can't move on to the next phase. So these things need to happen. Like these are non-negotiables. Whereas before I was kind of loose with it. I was kind of just like, yeah, oh, you're close. Like, I guess your body's ready to transition into burning fat. And I guess, we can kind of go in. And I was setting people up for failure doing that and just being very loose and lackadaisical versus setting some hard lines, having that communication with those people. And guess what? The progress and results from my clients since then has been exponential. Has been great. It's phenomenal. And it's because I just cleared the air, and it was totally my fault. I put something on their schedule, expecting them to do it, expecting them to adhere to it. But there had to be way more clear communication as like, hey, aside from your daily checkoff schedule, we're going to have our own that we pull up. I share my screen with you. And this is essentially your non-negotiable prerequisite requirements to be able to transition into the next phase. And we have to check off everything before we move in there. So however long it takes you, it'll take average on 4 to 6 weeks, but it was something I revamped in my program that's worked so well. But it was my fault. It was my fault expecting others to read my mind, and, the severity of it and the clarity and things like that. But yeah, man, it's made me better when I take the hit on the chin and go, okay, everything in me wants to blame them. But when you take it on the chin and you go, okay, how can I be better? Obviously, I'm not doing something correctly. You can fix it and you can move forward super fast. So I encourage people, if you have that scenario or something similar, and I just used my example, but if you can relate it to your life and go, okay, where can I point the thumb more if somebody's letting me down? If I'm assuming that somebody should be doing something, but they're not, where can I point the thumb more? And I promise you, things will turn around for you way quicker than you getting pissed off and like blaming the other person and saying, why did they not do this? Why? Things would be so much more smooth.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like that ownership thing is huge because I used to do the same type of thing where I would constantly assume that people could read my mind and knew exactly what I wanted from them, and constantly being let down and constantly like blaming other people, right? And so it's like, yeah, it I think it's like maturity too as well. Like as you get older, you just kind of like, okay, like this way of doing things hasn't worked out for me, and so yeah, I try to definitely, I like your point the thumb aspect of it as well. Or yeah, I definitely do that a lot more now, and does lead to a lot better results in everything you're doing. Another thing I thought about while you were speaking is like the client side of things, right? Because I know for me, I've had some different coaching in my life, and I remember like having the shame of like not communicating everything always to my like eating things that I'm like, oh, like that's not a part of the plan. Like I feel terrible about it, not communicating it to the coach, right? Like I went through some of those like weeks, and it just like it took me like I was like, wow, I'm not seeing the results I want to. Like I'm paying this guy money to coach me, and it kind of clicked. Where I'm like, I gotta like be just 100% honest with myself on this and like where I'm messing up, but also I got to be 100% honest with this person who wants to help me, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with that, where it's like you lay down the guidelines and the rules and like what, not necessarily rules, but like, hey, here's what the standard is, here's what needs to get done, or here's what the goals are, like these are the daily goals, the weekly goals, whatever it may be. And as a client, you're not following through on those things, and you feel shameful, so you just kind of you check them off, right? And so the problem with that is like now as a coach you can't make adjustments, right? Because maybe the standards that we've set are too much for you right now. Maybe it's not a good time for the step goal to be 10,000, and for the protein goal to be whatever it is, and all these different things that we have in place for you. Maybe that we need to lower those and make it so that they're attainable before we go up again. But without that constant communication, we're just assuming you're crushing it, right? Or like as a client, like you're just like you don't feel good about it. And like one of those things, I think I've talked about this on the pod a decent amount, but it's just like the being honest with yourself aspect of it. I think that helps you be honest with other people, where it's like, okay, you can't lie to yourself. Like you can try lying to yourself, but then you feel like shit. Like it just doesn't work that way. And so like that's one of the things that's been at top of mind for me for a while now, is like being completely honest with other people, but really it starts with being completely honest with myself. And so I think people, you start to do that and start to keep that a little bit more top of mind, it makes life a lot easier. And also like that kind of on the assumption side of things, like it's just now solutions can be made, because without the knowledge as a coach, right, that you're the client's struggling and not being able to hit these goals, or eating like struggling with certain type of foods, now we can't help you, right? Because that's what we want to do, and that's what a coach wants to do. And so that's just kind of one of the last things I wanted to mention, was just on that side of things. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Dude, that's so huge. That's fine. I wish we had one of those buttons, because I wanted to just interrupt what you're saying at the point you're saying it and just wah, wah, wah. But it's just with the point at which you really like, I think if anybody takes anything away from this, we're talking about communication. And instead of putting the blame on others, if you can take the self accountability, you can trust yourself, you can believe in yourself, everything else that you want to happen will go a lot smoother. And it's the second you start taking that on the chin and like pointing the thumb versus pointing the finger and taking ownership, back to your example of like, if I'm just checking off the boxes because I know I'm short and I know I didn't hit them, but I don't want to disappoint my coach, so I'm just going to sweep this under the rug and I'm going to check them off. Well, when they go to make, and they're going to be scratching their head like, man, well, you should be crushing it because you're checking off everything, and you're just staying quiet of like, oh, well, I ate McDonald's 2 days a week, but I'm going to check off that I hit my calories, and I only walked 4,000 steps and my goal is 7,000. And I did that. And that's on a good day. Like, and you start just kind of getting in the rhythm, like checking these things off and being dishonest. And you don't look yourself in the mirror and go, I'm not doing that shit. So we're talking about communication with others, but the communication with yourself, I think, is the biggest one. And honestly, the clients that do the best for me and parts of my life where I feel like I'm crushing it, I have those conversations with myself. I'm super honest with myself. If I try to brush shit under the rug with myself personally, I continue just to struggle. I continue just to fumble. And it's very hard to do because it's our natural instinct to want to just be like, it's that circumstance, it's those people, it's those things, versus just going, no, dude, I'm not doing the things I said I was going to do. I'm not stepping up to the plate. I'm sweeping shit under the rug thinking I'm doing great. And then you face the music, you have that conversation with yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh shit, I'm not doing the things I said I was going to do. And then the belief in self starts to diminish. It's very challenging. So that would be my last point.
I love it. Well, hey, I got nothing else to add. I think this was a great pod. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you got some good value from it. If you did, make sure you just share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who do struggle with this. And I think this is a game changer just for everything in your life. And so, again, hope you guys have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. We appreciate you for listening and watching. And we'll be talking to you soon.